and welcome to another episode of Dees Talk. Today, my guest is Janet Schmidt. She's a healer, also known as the healer's healer and the healer's assistant. Welcome to Dees Talk.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
We just had an interesting little workshop session this morning with you, and it was interesting to see your various techniques and little ways you work with people to help them. How did it all start for you?
Well, originally when I was young, when I was 4 years old, I started to see angels. And as I grew up, I would ask my dad a lot of questions. He was a minister. I'd ask him spiritual questions about, witchcraft even. I mean, I was into everything. Angels, beings.
So what was the first, so at 4 years old, you saw angels. How did they appear, or what was the concept? Can you remember the first time?
Yes, and my grandfather had passed right in front of us. He fell and he had passed, and I couldn't figure out why everybody was crying. Because to me, he was going to heaven. He was with the angels, and I couldn't relate to that. And so it was after that that I really was the one child out of four that was asking these questions. If you're not baptized and you're a good person, are you going to heaven? I'd ask those questions. I'd ask about earth angels. I'd ask what people saw when they died and come back. And my dad would tell me, he said, I don't doubt it, but I haven't experienced it. So he never doubted it. But then as I went through life, I kind of shut it down, went to college, had kids, got married. And then when I went...
So you stopped seeing angels?
I stopped everything.
Like almost, right.
Yeah, I shut it down because my mom didn't really accept it, and I didn't feel like if I spoke about it that anybody else accepted it either at that time.
And there wasn't so much of, it wasn't like the internet was around in those days where you could connect to your people that would be open to it.
Or even you just didn't talk about it.
Right.
It wasn't spoken about. Really. It's not like today. Today, if anybody talked about it, people would say, oh, really? They'd be a little bit more interested. Back then, it was a taboo.
Right.
It was
especially
really
coming from a Christian background, right? Where it's like this is what the rules are, and you can't question it. That's like blasphemy, and to come up with new alternative theories is not really welcomed.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. It's follow that fear line.
Yeah. Right. And then, when did it come back into your life?
So I ended up getting divorced. My youngest was, I think, 8 or 9 at the time. And I remember being on my knees looking at a picture window. And all of a sudden, these translucent figures came walking right into me, Jesus, Moses, and Elijah. And I was like, whoa, what just happened? And I didn't tell anybody. But at that very moment, I started seeing angels again in the trees and all around. It was, and I kept it to myself for a very long time.
And how is one of these visits? Like, you're walking along, or you're sitting, or you're in. Are you in some kind of altered state, like meditation, when they happen? Like that was a point when you were praying, you were kneeling in prayer, which kind of maybe put you in an altered state that allowed them to come in. Is that how it happens when you see them? Or?
I think it did that time. But now I don't even have to be.
Right. So
I think
it's
it's just
normal consciousness.
Normal
around.
consciousness, I can see it. But it's almost like seeing somebody's aura. You can see people's auras too. And so it's very similar. Everything's energy. Yeah. So I consider it just a form of energy that I see. But it did come back at that time, and I kept it to myself for quite a while.
Right. And then how did that evolve from you having contact again into you becoming a healer, or were they giving you messages that were like, let's pass these on to the humans, or what were they?
Well, at first it was, I think it was just to make me feel secure. And then I went through a couple other paranormal experiences, what I would say is not a normal experience, like levitating off of tables and having other things happen to me. It was almost like wake up. You're supposed to wake up. And I was letting just regular life happen. But the more I went through that, I became a Reiki master. Even though I was chairman of the board of a nonprofit that helped homeless women get a better education, I was raising funds for an inner city hospital. I was still, kind of proceeding on that path of figuring out energy, how we can heal our bodies, how we can move. And then I ended up being in arbitration.
Right.
Because my financial advisor had made an investment outside the scope of the firm, and this was an international firm, so I trusted them. And I knew nothing about money, really. I didn't grow up with money. I was, as a matter of fact, I grew up very challenged. My parents were very challenged. And now here I had the money, but this financial advisor made an investment outside the scope of the firm, and now I'm in arbitration.
Because you lost your money.
Because he lost my money. He lost a lot of money.
And that's never fun going to court.
No,
quite a draining.
It was
experience.
14 days.
Oh, right.
It was very long. But during that time, I started looking at my life, and I was looping, what I call looping. And looping is when you have the same people, you have different people, but the same situation happen. And I noticed that it was happening with money, which I call our inherited money consciousness, which we can get into later, but that's what I call it. And I was also looping in relationships and how I saw myself. And so I knew it had to be more than just the energy, which what we're taught from Reiki, or even what Einstein says, which is match the frequency with the reality you wish for, and you can't help but bring it to you. I had to go in and say, okay, but what is this? And so I started checking into epigenetics, and that is basically our imprinting or our coding that we get from our ancestors, which is passed down to our parents. And from our parents, we receive that from the time we're born to about 7 years old. We get their, how they see everything, their mannerisms, everything. And then after that, it's our environment and society that dictates the reality we're going to live. So I started looking first at my family, at my parents. And I came from 8 generations of ministers who signed up to be economically challenged, who didn't have any money to manage, and gave their last cents away. So this gave me a clue. And I'm not saying I honor my ancestors, but I didn't sign up for that. I didn't know that that was my coding, that programming. So that started me investigating everything about me. So I became my first client.
Right.
I literally tore myself apart. And it can be painful to recognize what fears we have in our lives. And even the fears that maybe I was giving my children, which is, I did apologize to them later, but it's recognizing what's working for you and what's not. And so I went down that rabbit hole.
So there's all these patterns which exist for many generations, which a lot of us end up repeating, either because it's passed down genetically or because of the behavior that they show in front of us as kids, and then we remodel it, and we end up in the same sort of pattern of whether it's relationships or behavior. So how did it manifest
Correct.
in your sort of looping of relationships?
Oh,
You met the same kind of guy,
Yes.
just in a different form?
yes,
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I was also very fear-based. I mean, my mother was fear-based, her mother was fear-based. So I was fearful to try certain things and to explore, to go outside the cubicle of what I was told that I stayed conformed in that cubicle. So I hadn't.
In terms of what you could do with your life, or in terms of
Yes.
the religious basis of reality?
Both.
Those things, both of them.
Both of them, because I've always obviously been interested since I was young about paranormal and even the spiritual world, spirituality in general.
But that's what's fascinating, because for you, the religion was a family business if your parents were ministers. So they're dealing in religion. And then if you actually read the Bible, it's full of paranormal activity.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, I mean, if you could go through it and just highlight, and it would be constant. This God came to this person in a dream. Then this angel spoke to that other guy. And Everyone's having paranormal experiences on which the entire religion is based, and which billions of people follow, whether it's Christianity, whether it's um, the Islam, with the fact that Muhammad channeled the entire Quran via the angel Gabriel speaking to him. So if you believe in a religion, which most of the world does, you're basing that belief on people having paranormal experiences thousands of years ago. And I always wonder, why can't we have those same experiences or interactions with angels, or downloads of higher quality information that will help us, whether it's, downloads. I always think, where are these downloads coming from? Angels, God, aliens that have some way to communicate with us, are there dimensional beings? Where do these thoughts, or seemingly extremely different from the mainstream way of thinking, that comes in and makes a change and creates a whole new religion, or gives humanity some kick in one direction or another. And that's why I was fascinated to have you on, to hear how it is from somebody who's directly on a daily basis having these kind of experiences, and kind of make them more visible to the world, So
Yeah.
that's why I'm really curious to see how you integrate those things into your daily life and into your practice as a healer, and how does it help people?
Well, first of all, I tell everybody can do what I do.
Right.
Everybody. If you have intuition, or you have, your first thought, that's pretty much your intuition, which means you're connected. Right. Everybody's connected. You just have to allow yourself to be open to it and understand that intuition is your higher self basically communicating to you.
Right.
Period. But I had decided that when I started going into epigenetics, I had the spiritual part of me understanding the angels and, more spirituality. And then...
And you were never scared of that? Like, when you saw angels, was it just like implicit that they were good guys? There was no,
Yeah, pretty much. Because I remembered the day that I was given a choice of channeling, being a medium and channeling people who had passed.
How did that choice come to you?
I was having a conversation with
Oh,
Infinite
right.
Source,
Okay.
and they showed me the two different, and they gave me the experience. So they allowed me to have that. I believe I was allowed to have this experience. So I went, and my dad had passed already. So I thought, who better to try this with than your father, right? And my dad had already been, I can always tell when my dad's around because I smell cigarette smoke. So I know his spirit is kind of around because he was an avid smoker. But I thought, let's try it with him first. And so I saw this vision of this big tree and all these people standing underneath the tree, and my dad came forward. But as he came forward, all these people rushed forward. And for me, it was just a little bit too much. And I said, I think I'm going to stay with the higher frequency, the angels and the higher guides, like Saint Germain and Jesus, Buddha, Kuan Yin, kind of hang out
rather
with
than just all the masses.
And the angelic council, the large armor angel, I'll take those instead. So that was the choice I made. Now, there have been maybe 10 times in my life that a deceased person's channeled through me to somebody, and they'll keep asking me to ask the person if I can talk to them. And they'll always have a message that just means that they just want them to know that they're okay and they're safe. So that's probably only happened 10 times, and I always know when it is because I get this feeling up my right hand, my right arm. And then I'm like, okay, this is not the normal thing that's happening. So
you have the signals of when something paranormal is about to happen, or some kind of communication, or you mentioned previously to us starting recording of little visions of something that is like symbolic of what kind of message is about to come through.
I do. So as I got certified, I ended up wanting to work with all ranges of people. So I wanted to be able to help the more linear thinking people and the more spiritual, or what we might call woo-woo out there people. Right. So I wanted to be diverse. Sure. So I literally became a board certified NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, for those who don't know what that is, and hypnotherapy, EMI, EMDR, theta healing, light code activation, DNA reengineering, Reiki master, and
hypnotherapy you mentioned as well.
Yeah. I like it, but I prefer, even though there's hypnotherapy, I really like self-hypnosis or light hypnosis, where the person always feels like they can come out. Yeah. I've never been, and maybe it's just my preference, I've never been for one that I'm going to put you out and I'm just going to go.
Yeah, I'll fix you. When I click my fingers, you'll be fixed.
Yeah, I've never been one for that. So I kind of make it more of a self-hypnosis for people, so that they feel safe. The whole point is that when you're assisting someone in reprogramming a belief that they've had for a long time to shift their paradigm so they live the life they want to live, you want to create a safe place. Yeah. And to me, that gives the majority of people a safe place to let me help them do their work.
Yeah, because a lot of it is embedded into our programming from our childhood, our environment, what is drilled into us from society, etc. And a lot of that is NLP, right? Because we are kind of receiving messages from what's written everywhere, billboards, teachers, everyone that's passing on this coding, programming to us. And then it's interesting to be able to go in there, get into the right state to see which of that programming is useful to me, and to get rid of it, and then put in stuff that's good. So that's where what mantras or other sort of lines of thinking of certain words said one after the other. So so the neuro-linguistic programming is literally about the programming using words. So the words that are rattling around our head or that we say to ourselves is actually very important. And the words you say out loud, it's almost like magic spells, right? So which thoughts are you going to allow to continue, and which thoughts are you going to let die off, and what new words and new phrases are you going to be repeating to yourself?
Yeah, and neuro-linguistic programming is also, it even goes further, because it's also our mannerisms. Right. It's I mean, if I said to you, hey, will you help me with this fundraiser? And you stiffened and you said, yeah, but you look like a deer caught in the headlights. Well, 93% of you told me you didn't want to do it, and only 7%, which was the words, the verbal, told me you did. So when I work with people, I often look at their mannerisms. I look at how they feel about things. That's a key. But when we're talking about the messaging that I give for them, I always channel before I meet with somebody, and I may not tell them that I'm doing that if it's a linear person, but it gives me information. And usually it's a message for them. And to me, it's a message for them from their higher self. And I learned to do that first for myself. I would say, what is it that Janet needs to know today? And I play with it. And then I started, and this is several years ago, and then I started saying, what does humanity need to know? And I started doing that during COVID. Right. And it was profound what they were telling me. And at that time, I would call it the angelic council, the galactic angelic council. I'd see a chorus of angels. Right. And it's almost like they spoke as a collective, as one, but they would say we. So when they refer to themselves as we, it's the collective of what they would say. And so I thought, well, if I can do this for this, I can do it for my clients. So I realized what I was doing really was connecting to their higher self. That's what I believe. But the form of the message that's going to come through is, for example, if somebody has something about courage, right, or safety, security, and confidence, I'll see an angel this huge angel in armor. Okay. And so it gives me a reference. You know, if it's the Virgin Mary, I know it's going to be a really motherly, gentle message coming through. So it just depends, or I'll see a couple goddesses, which means it wants somebody to get into their feminine. So I kind of have an idea, but I just let my hand go. I take a couple deep breaths. They show me the picture, and I just let my hand write.
So like automatic writing.
It's automatic writing,
Right.
and the message gets done. And when they say, that's all, we love you, I know it's finished. And I usually don't read them until I'm in front of the client. And then
Okay, so while you're writing it, you're almost not aware of what words are coming out. It's just
no, I have an idea of what it's about just because of the figure that they show me, but I don't know every word that's coming out. No.
right. But then it's completely makes sense. Everything.
Oh, everything.
Right.
I mean, I've had time. They had one message they wrote to this woman who was coming for the first time. Why so sad? Life is XXX. And they started writing all this. And I thought, I kind of glanced at it and I said, why so sad? Oh, they might be wrong for the first time because they've never been wrong. And I said, oh, and because she comes in the door and she's beautiful woman.
On the surface, at least.
Oh, beautiful woman on the surface, comes in happy as everything. She sits down and she goes, I'm so sad. I was like, whoa, okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I've heard some pretty profound messages, but they're lovely. You know, it's always a positive, lovely message to the client. And
uplifting.
yeah.
So when they so there's the angelic council, and then you say there's the higher self. Now, how does that work? Where is our higher self?
Our higher self is our authentic essence. It's really who we are. It's our divine being, what I consider our divine, what we are, eternal, our eternal being. That's
which we're
how
always
I look
connected
at
to. That's
which
what we are.
Yeah.
But now we're in some
we're part of
avatar version.
Right. That's all we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're part of, you know, I believe we're part of the divine, and the divine is part of us, and we're eternal beings. And this kind of, I agree with everybody that says this kind of earth school. You know, you're kind of learning as you go along. But if you really learn to relax in it and go with the flow and welcome receiving, you know, really great things happen.
Yeah. Being open to receive is a huge thing. And we were just speaking earlier about how the power of the question, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or the power of the asking, you know, like if you ask for help, it will come, or if you ask the right question, then the right answers will come. Is that how some of your messages come through, or are you just like, tell me something, or is it like,
well, I usually
how
ask,
can I help this person on this, and then
I
the
can
answer
do
comes
that.
quite specific.
I can do that. I can say, well, I started off by, what is it that Darius needs to know today?
Right.
So on that particular day, they're going to tell me exactly what they want you to know. Your higher self is going to say what they wish for you to know that you may not be hearing.
Right.
But I can ask about other people if I want. I can ask about different situations if I want. And they'll still flow.
They'll always give the answer.
They'll always give the answer. I think part of it's just moving yourself out of the way and not trying to anticipate it and be open. You just have to be open with no judgment and just receive and welcome the message in.
As the message comes in. And then your higher self. So would you say a lot of people are kind of disconnected from their authentic self, and sort of getting messages from them helps them to sort of reconnect? Is that because they've been programmed in ways that have taken them away from themselves?
Oh, that's a great question. I do believe that. I believe somehow we're still connected always, but I ended up, this is an interesting client. I ended up having someone who was in special ops. Right. You know, he's in special operations.
Military.
He was retired. Young guy though, but retired. And he came to me and I took him through a process, kind of what we did today. I took him through that process. And I think when you're in that type of position in the military, you become disconnected And so we were able to reconnect him completely with what I would say his soul being or his authentic, reattaching that totally, because they kind of have to detach to disattach.
Detach.
Detach. They have to detach from that, in order to do the work they do. You can understand that. But when we went through the process, he wrote me a beautiful, beautiful note. I actually have it on, I think, my website, but a beautiful note about how he just cried after we were done. He said, I have to tell you, I cried, and my frequency, my wife even said the frequency for 2 days was just off the charts. And he said, you made me back together again.
Back to himself.
Back to himself.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people that are involved in the military or certain professions, must have to have that detachment. Even surgeons or undertakers, whatever, people that deal with certain potentially emotionally traumatic events on a regular basis must have, as a form of self-preservation, try to detach themselves, and maybe that's not good from the soul perspective at times.
Yeah, or yeah, maybe so. Yeah. I think either way it's hard, when you're in that position.
Yeah. So you deal with all sorts of clients then. You deal with some corporates as well.
Yes.
You actually what like take on whole teams.
I'll take on. I do small teams. I've done reprogram for success for larger groups, but I will help small teams with corporate emotional intelligence, understanding that they have to create this strategy by understanding each other's backgrounds, because we all come from different backgrounds. And the more that you can work with each other and understand each other. And so I go through a process of that. I give them what I call emotional resilience tools. We went through one today that the samurais used to do prior to going into battle, and it's only 90 seconds. So I armed them with some things that can help them in the corporate world, but also personal life. And then I assist them in making goals. So if they have a goal that they all want to be aligned on, we can get them all into the whole brain state on achieving that. Right. And so I take them through a process of all of them aligning. So if we're the number one team, biggest team selling, or we've made our goal, or we've surpassed our goal, you can tell if somebody believes it or somebody doesn't. If they don't believe it, you can put that belief in them. Now you've got a well-oiled machine because you're all believing in the same goal.
Same goal.
And so that's important, that you get your whole team believing in the same goal. And I have a process of doing that with an energy psychology modality that even Dr. Bruce Lipton in the Biology of Belief talks about in the back of the book.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And as a matter of fact, I think he says this is the reason why he could write the book and why he has good relationships today. So I love using that modality, and I use it on the corporate groups, but I'll take them one by one because I never want, because it's kind of showing who believes and who doesn't.
Yeah.
And so I'll take them separately, and I never tell who tested strong on it and who doesn't. I just leave it alone and just say everybody's on the same page.
Because I guess when you start getting into this stuff, not everybody, some people must have certain attitudes towards it that aren't, like, what is this? Like, or non-believers, or think it's all just made up, whatever. So I guess if you're going into a big group, there's always going to be a higher chance of some people like that. How do you deal with them? Or
I think if you explain, when you go through epigenetics and you really take them through, that epigenetics is something that we are programmed with from the time we're young, and we can turn on and off those genes. So now they're starting to look, the minute I start talking about characteristics and beliefs, I do have them captivated because they're all starting to analyze, okay, what is this doing? And then when you say energy, because this is the thing, our thoughts are energy. I mean, the biochemicals in our brain functioning shows that our very thoughts affect our cells. So now you've got them on two different things because they're thinking about, okay, my epigenetics tells me this, and it's promoting this feeling. And that's why I always say one of the things I do talk about is we talked about this earlier, mind and belief equal perception, equal feeling, equal experience. And this is something that I do teach them, that because you have to understand that. Because if you don't like the experience or the feeling, you go back to the perception and you go back to the belief.
Right.
And you
So
shift the belief, shift the perception, shift your feeling and your experience.
and that applies to everyone. So I guess also, like you're saying, there's certain ways in with
Yes.
more, even for the most sort of left brain, shall we call it, people, they need to have some hard science behind it, or and there is hard science behind some of these things, and the lines seem to be, as time goes on, getting more blurred in between the spiritual woo-woo people and the hardcore left, scientist people, because especially once you start dipping into quantum mechanics, and stuff gets weird quite
Right.
quickly. Quantum entanglement is like, well, shows how we are all connected in certain ways we don't even understand, which spirituality has all been saying for thousands of years,
Yes.
all in their various forms. And then you also see with, like you're saying, the NLP side is quite similar to almost prayer. Like that's the more scientific side, but then the prayer side can be on the more spiritual, but they overlap. There's a lot of overlapping and blurring of lines, and I think as time goes on, more and more people will be open to this, and I think now the time is right for almost a new wave of openness to new forms of spirituality that don't have so much dogma attached as maybe the mainstream religions do, in some way that the problem I have with them often is they don't seem to be open to new ways of interpreting the nature of reality. It's
No.
almost like it's done. We worked it out. That's it. No new chapter in the Bible, which I always find interesting. Why aren't there new chapters being written by modern man? Maybe there should be some modern Bible.
I agree with you. Just like why were so many chapters left out. I think I always say, well, it's man-made.
Yeah.
And that's the egoic, right? The egoic subconscious limitations of man, and that takes us into that. And
What
it's
is-
also control. There's a lot that has to do with the time on Earth, and I mean this takes us into a different direction, but it does. It's kind of the time on Earth, and I think that there's such a shift now, and there's part of me that thanks COVID for that, because I think COVID made a lot of people go within.
Yeah.
I think COVID, it did two things. Either you became really fear-based, or you went within. And most of the people that I know, they went within. And I have to say that's what kind of propelled me actually even further in what I do, and asking for a bunch of different techniques that I now, actually download myself when I ask for them, to assist a client into accessing what they need faster and more efficiently.
Yeah.
But I do thank COVID a little bit for that, because I think now's the time. Consciousness is, I say it's expanding. Now I always say there's no right or wrong, because that's duality. But I do, and I think if somebody wants to stay where they're at, that there's no wrong to that. But to expand into a higher level, or a higher understanding, or a more abundant ability, sign me up.
Right.
I'm going that route, for me anyway. And like I said, it's your journey. We all have our journey, and we get to choose. But right now on this earth, I would say the evolution or the revolution of self-love and loving others is on the rise, and expanding, and that's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing to be able to say.
Right. And you're playing a part of that.
Well, so are you.
Yeah.
So are you. As we were
Authentic self,
discussing, every person has, every person in this room has like if 600 people that they know
Yeah.
in their lifetime. Then those 600 people have 600 people, and those 600 have 600 people. So now you're affecting 2.1 million people
Yeah.
just by being happy.
It's true. Just by being and affecting, it's like ripple effect to,
Yeah. It's beautiful.
millions of people and maybe beyond. Yeah.
Yeah, the collective.
Absolutely. I mean, I always feel when you look at the way things are, what's happening on this planet from all different angles, that's when you realize that we are one in not just a sort of ethereal way of thinking about it, but in a very real physical sense as well. Like the air that I breathe in and breathe out goes into you and the trees and comes back and goes around the planet, the water cycles, everything is interacting in one in a very physical way. And we all die and our bodies go into the earth and get eaten and turn into new nutrients and then turn into new life. It gets broken down and then re-eaten again, and it's all just like this churning life on the planet, but then also with this seems to like spiritual layer to it, and that's also interacting with it. And it's just, I think there's more to the story always than we are all these separate little bubbles walking around as individuals. And we, I'd like to explore how we are more connected to other aspects which we don't in everyday life realize. So the spiritual realms, whether it's angelic council, which sounds like one form, whether there's aliens, whether there's other dimensional beings, they're out there and they're trying to make contact, I think. So how do we make contact and how do we make it mutually beneficial for all? And are there any dangers out there of it?
Well, I would say yes.
Yeah, there are dangers.
I would say yes to everything. I mean, anyone can make contact. I've said that, and you have to be open to it and quiet yourself. I think when it first started, I spent hours being quiet and allowing and figuring it out, just how I wanted to use it too. I didn't know exactly. I knew I was doing NLP in that, but I didn't know how much I wanted to use the other information like intuitive healing and what I wanted to program. But I would say everybody has an ability, and I do agree that yes, there are other life forms out there. I think to think that we're the only ones. I do believe in, and I've heard other people talk about it, we are an experimental planet.
Right.
And I kind of believe that. We have free will, which is a beautiful gift to be given, and I hope everybody understands that, because you have freedom of choice. There is never a chance that you don't have a choice. You always have a choice. But I do believe in, when people talk about the Arcturians and the Palladians and other, and I've actually seen from my deck, I've actually seen that it has to be a spaceship or something going by. So there's no doubt to me.
From the deck of your house in Malibu.
In
right?
Malibu,
Right.
yeah. There's no doubt to me that there is, and I think there's just too much out there now.
Sure.
So that's one.
So you've had direct encounters with angels, but not with aliens.
I've not put it out there that I wanted it really. Right. Yeah. I know part of the council, there are probably, I know the Arcturians are there. I've seen them. I don't talk to them really. They might have a voice in it, but it's always one voice talking to me. But I do know that they're out there because I've seen it. And I've even looked out on the deck and I've seen, it looked like a star dancing in the sky. And it came as I looked at, and I was saying gratitude. I was having gratitude. And this star, this twinkling star, came within 30 feet of me and it stayed that small. And then when I said, okay, that's it, I think I'm going to go in, it was a little too much. And it just went like that. It just went away.
Yeah, well,
It was the most amazing thing to experience, but I have no doubt.
yeah. I mean, to just do the math, when you start to understand what is known about the universe and how many stars there are, and they say there's more stars that have been identified than there are grains of sand on Earth.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you think about how many grains of sand there are just on one beach, then you think how many all the beaches of the world and on the whole planet, then that's a lot of stars to have no life.
I just think it's really a little bit naive of us not to think that
it's
that's
almost absurd.
that's
when you think,
that's out there. But I do think that when you talk about communicating, I do think that you have to use some sort of I don't want to say common sense or some sort of filter, and have to understand. I mean, I did that. I personally did that. I said that I only wanted to channel higher beings, the beings of the highest light, and the guides and guardians of the highest light. And that is what I ended up doing.
Right.
And it's just because that's what I wanted to be open to. Now, I know other people who, you know, I have a really good friend who's a medium and a psychic, and he can channel everything, and he's fine.
I say, yeah, because I guess
It's
that's
not something I would want to do, but he does.
I guess that's one of the main like fears of it, or at least from part. It's kind of part of the religious fear of it that you're messing with these dark sort of demonic energies, or you know you might open the door and then not be able to close it, and then what's going to come through, or what are you messing with? All different, you know, good spirits, bad spirits, are there good aliens, bad aliens, you know, and then could you lose your mind? That, you know, especially, which is hearing voices can be known as, you know, whatever can be a part of schizophrenia, or is schizophrenia like something that's gone wrong that they are receiving message? I mean, you start getting into mental health issues, and then that's also obviously something that people are really scared of. Like losing their mind is probably one of the potentially scariest things that could happen, right?
Well, I also think the people who are ready to be open to channeling their higher self, like I would encourage everybody to be open to your higher self.
Yeah, that's just me anyway.
That's just me anyway. So it's my true authentic self. So why not? You know, so you know, to me, it's just connecting to infinite source in a way. You know, your higher self is we're part of infinite source, so that's your higher self. So I'd say to everybody, hey, there's no harm in that. So, you know, connect yourself. Start there. Yeah. Because a lot of information there for you. It's like going into the Akashic Records, basically.
Right. So that's where the Akashic Records are basically like a library of everything.
Yeah,
everything you could possibly want to know ever.
Yeah.
Right, and we can all access that.
Yeah, we all can. I tried that. The first time I did it, I remember I sat at my kitchen table and I was reading a book by Linda Howe. It's Howe for those interested. She has a prayer in there that she does prior to going in. So I thought, okay, this is going to be safe. I'm going to follow what she does. And I did. And it was beautiful when I went in, because she even talks how you'll see the entrance of it, and like
so it is like a place almost. You can right.
Yeah. So for me, it was like this big antique round door, and when I opened it, it was all these bookshelves, but they were translucent with vines hanging on them. And on this table, this high table, it said "My Life" in gold letters.
Right.
So, and I could see cloaks of people walking by, so they must have been guides. And then they had this healing pool for me there. And so I went in the healing pool as a 4-year-old and came out as an adult.
A pool, like a hot tub.
It was like, it was like this green kind of rectangular pool, and they told me to go in. My guides put me in there. I went in. I came out, and I was a grown-up. And then after that, I can see it right now. I just can go in and ask questions.
and there's like what books. So there was a book of
There was
my
a book
life.
there. I don't see the books now. I mean, I
Right.
can see it if I want, but I don't really see it. I just ask the question now.
But did you open the book on my life?
Yeah, sure. Who
Right.
wouldn't open
Yeah.
the book? Hey, this is my life. I gotta see what they got to say.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's pretty fascinating now. According to Linda Howe, I haven't had this happen, and I don't know anybody else, but she says if you're not ready, they won't let you in. Now I
Right.
don't know if that's true, but she says that, so I'm going to take it as truth because she's the
So they have
expert.
some kind of overvision of us, like they're always watching us, or they can see things, aspects of us which we don't know.
Which we don't know. What you mean the guides up there?
Yeah.
Sure, of course, because we came here with our brain, our memories wiped. I mean, when we came down, because I believe what a lot of people believe is that we continuously come down learning lessons.
Right.
And
So you believe in reincarnation?
I do,
and everything like that,
absolutely. One of the most eye-opening books I ever read was by Dr. Weiss, and he was a hypnotherapist, and he wrote about this woman who had 86 or something different lives, and he hypnotized her trying to get rid of phobias, and she took him to ancient Greece. And the thing is that what he discovered is we show up, some of us, the people that we feel really comfortable with, even if we've met them for the first time, they've probably been in many of our lifetimes, and we've just planned that they're going to help us out in these different situations. So we kind of pick out the people who are going to be on this trip that we're on,
Really?
this
It's
journey
already-
through life. I believe that wholeheartedly. When I read that, it just, I
Made
think I read it like maybe 20 years ago. It just opened up everything for me. I'm like, yes, I know this to be true. This is everything I believe.
Right.
So that's one of the first books I give some of my clients who are interested. I said, read this, and it'll open up a
What's the
world
book
for you.
title?
It's Many Lives, Many Masters
Many Lives, Many Masters.
by Dr. Brian Weiss.
Right. I think I've seen
Such
that
a
in my
great
mum's
book.
library. Yeah. So
Such a great book.
so have you managed to tap into any of your previous lives, or
Oh yeah.
right.
I've
Is that
I've
via
lived-
like
I've lived-
self
I've lived some
hypnosis?
some great lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had some great lives and not so great lives. I said to somebody, I had an aversion to going to Monte Picchu for a long time. I said, that's not a place I really want. I want to go to Egypt, but I'm not sure I want to go to Monte Picchu, because they were asking me if I want to go. And I said, I know I was a really great shaman or medicine person, and I wasn't a great one. And I said, I think in Monte Picchu it might have not been so great
Oh,
or
what,
something.
like you've done bad stuff.
Yeah, because I had
Okay.
an aversion to that.
Okay.
Yeah, so you kind of, it's all for us to learn. Every lifetime is for us to explore and learn. So even if we can say, when I say not so good, I was learning.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so I would also say to people, as we go through that process, sometimes we can make contracts or agreements that if you were given a special gift, because we all have gifts, if you might say, okay, I don't want to ever have that gift again.
Right.
And so now you shut it down.
So we're not like evolving in terms of the gifts we have, we just keep and add to. You can actually lose gifts as well.
You can, well, I don't call it losing them. You can suspend them.
Suspend them.
What I call suspending them, like if you say, it's kind of like our words are our wand, right? So when you say, I'm never, like being persecuting you, I'm never using that again.
Right.
Okay, well, guess what? You're not using that again.
Right.
So, but you can reprogram that to bring online all your divine gifts. I believe we're all divinely gifted. I mean, if we want to go back to the Bible, we can say Jesus said, you can do what I can do and more. And he was trying to communicate to us, I believe his journey was to communicate to us that we are divine beings and that we are gifted and that we can heal ourselves. We can, manifest what we wish for. We can do all those things.
Yeah.
And more. I think we are exceptional. And I think we've been, as I like to say, dumbed down a little bit by society. And the more we can step into the elevation of who we really are. I mean, if every human really understood the power that they have, wow.
Yeah. So we need to like help them turn on, help them access that power.
Yeah, that's part of what I do. Is I like to get people to turn on their dormant light codes.
Well, that's what's interesting. You know, they call you the healer's healer. So, as opposed to, as we spoke briefly about people that go to therapy, they can end up being, not that there's not a place for it, but they can end up kind of being reliant on this outside source for healing they could do on themselves. And whereas you're trying to give people the toolbox with which to analyze and heal themselves.
Yes, I believe in that. Yeah. I believe that I'm the healer's assistant.
Right.
My client's the healer, because you're going to heal yourself. And so for me, when I come up with, like I did timeless quantum repatterning, which helps get rid of the egoic subconscious limitations, contracts, treatments, agreements that we've made through all our lifetimes. Why not give that to a client? I'll take a client through it maybe once or twice and say, here you go.
Well, so when do we make these contracts? In between lives, or?
We make them before we come down. Yeah, a lot of times you'll make the agreement before you come down, or you'll have them for many years or many lifetimes. I mean, you'll have made them in many lifetimes.
What, during
these are my experiences.
During your life, you make them, or is it always when you're?
I think before you. I believe a lot of it's made before you even come down.
Okay.
So you've made these.
So where do we go after we die?
Where do we go? We go to Infinite Source.
Right.
Yeah, we get to join the Infinite Source Collective. And it's all a process of whether you want to experience it again. You know, if you want to come to Earth again, you know.
So that's the free will again.
Yeah, and I do believe that we do have some sort of commitment of, we have a list of what we want to learn or experience. I mean, it's hard to think somebody wants to experience poverty, but this is all like an experience. And a lot of people will say it's so Infinite Source or God can experience it. Well, if we're part of God, then God is experiencing it, but you've also chose that. And it's hard for people. I had a client ask me, she said, can you do me a favor and channel and ask if I asked to have this cancer? That was a hard one for me, because what do I say to her? She goes, I want you to ask my higher self, because she didn't want to ask the question, if I chose this. And the reason why they had her, and so of course they did say, yes, you chose this path. This was the path you chose. She wanted to know if it was the path that she chose. But it was because they wanted her to use her body to figure it out. And she was somebody who was having me channel. Her guide was Saint Germain. And so she wanted me to channel. She didn't want to do the channeling. So she wanted me to channel Saint Germain, the questions she would have for him. So I would answer the questions. And she had questions about her DNA, junk DNA, because she wanted to fix everything. This is many years ago. And so, but they did tell her, yes, this was the path that you chose. And it was there was a big, long pause for her right there.
Because often when these bad things happen to us, they can be opportunities for you to have insight. Or if someone does something bad to you, for instance, it could be, if you said whatever in your previous in between lives, you said, I want to learn about forgiveness.
Right.
For you to learn about forgiveness, someone has to do something bad to you.
Yeah.
So actually, you can be, and I've done this experiment on myself when I'm like, okay, people have done bad things to me. People have stolen money. I've been caught. People have done terrible things. And then if I can always tell that, like, phrase in my head, I'm grateful to that person for, and then you can always finish that sentence.
Yeah.
You can always be like, you know what, actually, when that thing happened, I reacted like that, and something really good came out of it. But that good thing wouldn't have come out had that bad thing not happened.
Yeah.
You know, so when you
Exactly.
zoom out from it, you might think, oh, this is bad. But if you look at any series or whatever, it's like something bad happened to happen in the episode 2 for that other cool thing to happen in episode 5, which,
Right.
you know, then when you start looking at it like that, and back to what we were saying earlier about non-judgmental, not good or bad, sort of not looking at things in the duality way and just sort of being neutral, that's almost looking at it from above, like a macro thing that,
Yeah.
okay, well, that bad thing is going to bring something good. And I always have an expression that I use with my team, and I will say things like, just God's plan. It's
Yeah.
all part of God's plan.
Yeah.
And this bad thing, and eventually it does show up to be,
It ends up better than what
it
it would
ends
have,
up
right?
better.
Right.
Yeah.
I always say everything's working to my advantage. No
Yeah,
matter
yeah.
what it looks like, it's working to my advantage. And I do look at everything as an experience. This is an experience, and it gives us the wisdom and knowledge for whatever's coming down the pike. Whatever else we want to experience, it's there.
Yeah.
But I do think, and I would say this to everybody, frequency and your feelings are key of anything you want to manifest. It's keeping a high frequency, getting rid of those low feelings like shame, guilt, anger, hurt, all of those things. And you know, start with the forgiveness thing of what you were talking about.
Yeah.
That's a huge one. And just plow through it and keep yourself, wake up in the morning, have gratitude, and just say, I'm a happy person. I'm filled with joy, or I'm filled with gratitude. And I know some people will go, yeah, that's cliche, but it really, seriously,
Works.
it works.
Yeah.
It works. I love myself. I trust myself. I
And then
value
you
myself. I honor myself.
And then you start to see the world that way. Like, I always think of it as you can have two people look at the same picture or even have the same experience and react in completely different ways. Like, you can put them in the same hotel and some people will be like, this is the best trip of my life. And someone else will find everything wrong about it. You know?
Exactly.
And so much of it is how you are choosing to react to around the things that are happening to you. And the self-talk which you have about it, and having some habits, even if it feels a bit corny at first, like, okay, I love myself, or you're like saying these things, but when you actually do it for like 5 minutes afterwards, you do feel totally different.
You do. You do. And that's why I say that to people. You are in control of your life, period. So you have to decide what kind of life you want to live.
Yeah.
You know, and
what
it is a choice. It comes down to choice.
And an interesting thing is every moment is a chance to choose again, right? So whatever's
Absolutely.
happened before, every passing moment is a chance to completely change your life around, and you are allowed to
do
decide that as well.
Yeah. I mean, we only have now. So
Yeah.
the past is already gone. I mean, even 2 minutes ago is gone.
Yeah.
So we're not changing that. So the only time you can change is the now, because the future is the future. But if you change the now, you're changing the future.
Yeah. So let's speak a bit about that quantum jumping.
Oh, I love quantum jumping.
Let's go into that bit because that's quite fascinating.
That's my fun place.
Yeah.
I quantum jump every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it. Yeah.
Where do you?
It's a shift in consciousness.
How does it start?
Well, it depends. The one that I do, I have a certain one that I do, and I do it every day, and it begins by just relaxing, really, and then I go into the feeling of eternal love. I tap into that feeling first, and then I visualize 5 people, although it's gotten to 10, but 5 people, I see their wish fulfilled.
Ah.
I
5 people who you know personally.
5 people who I know personally, usually a little bit more, but 5 people who I know personally, and I see their wish fulfilled, and I see how happy they are. And then I actually have 4 people that I put in what I call the healing chamber, which is, we haven't talked about that, but I created a healing chamber for people to use who are ill. And so I put people in the healing chamber until I see them light up, and then I'm off to my jump. And I usually use fire breath to shift my consciousness.
What's that?
It's like
Okay.
breathing like that, and so I use that to really work up my body, and then I literally shift into another consciousness, and has visions of my wish, what I would say my wish fulfilled, or heaven on earth for me, what it is for me. And so I'll see visions of that. And then I'll wait, and my guides and guardians will come and talk to me, my higher self, and they'll have a little chit chat with me. And then I do the fire breath one more time, see the vision of the couple of visions that I have, and then I come back.
Wow.
It shifts your energy to such a higher energy, and you go through the whole day. I've been doing this now straight. I haven't, one of my friends I'll talk about that later, but they're like, you've never stopped. I said, no, I think I've done it for eight consecutive months every day.
Every day. Every day. In the morning.
In the morning.
You wake up.
In the morning, I wake up.
Quantum jump.
Oh man, I'm up most people know I'm up between 5 and 5:30, because some of my first clients are in Dubai.
Right.
So I have to be on at 7:30.
Right.
So I have all what I do. I mean, I do that. I actually have my version of prayer that I do. And then I do probably a 20-minute Sandy breath work.
Sandy breath.
Yeah, breathe with Sandy.
Okay.
Love,
Right.
Breathe with Sandy.
Okay,
good looking
Sandy.
dude.
We got some good references.
Yeah, he's amazing. Give him a nice little plug there. But and then I'll be on for my day, because it kind of rolls out, and like I said,
Sounds like an awesome way to
7:30 is
start
an early call, but I wrap early. I don't usually take a client after 3:30.
Right. So how many clients can you do in a day?
I like to do 4.
Right.
I can do 5, but I like to do 4, because I'm not one of those people that look at my watch and go, okay, it's an hour, we're done. You can't do that when you're helping somebody reprogram.
Yeah.
So usually my sessions are about 90 minutes to maybe a tiny bit longer.
And does it take some of your energy when you're like
I feel pretty good.
Oh, you feel good? You feel energized?
Yeah, I feel really happy.
Right.
Because half of my sessions, at least I can say this, half of the time I don't even know. I know they're talking through me to the client.
What, like
and
live channel?
And I'm almost the me is almost stepped aside.
Where do you go in your what's the experience like for you while that's happening, or is it just like a cut to
I'm
afterwards?
there. It's just a cut to. It's like almost they're just like talking through me to them, and then it's like, okay, you can go again.
Right.
It's
back in.
It's like
So
break.
it's almost like that scene
break.
from that movie Ghost, almost, where they that's dead people spirits, right? Jumping in with jumping into Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh yeah, yeah. It really
Patrick
is. It really is like for me, it's like somebody stepping on the accelerator. So when they want to talk, it's like, okay, we're talking, and then now you're talking, and they're talking, and most of the time people can tell that when it's
not you.
Yeah.
Right. It's
yeah,
like
they
a
can
slight
tell.
shift in.
There's just a slight shift in, I think, the energy.
Yeah.
And
even maybe the way you speak, or is there like a slight accent,
sometimes because
change?
I don't have any accent change at all, and it's just I'll go like that, and then I know they're gonna start talking. I'm like, okay.
No, I've seen some other channelers on the Gaia. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, I love Gaia. Yeah.
Platform, and I've seen them do it, and some of them could just seem to switch into it quite easily, but they do really change how they speak. And
yeah, they change. I did at first because I had to. The energy it's so strong, you have to harness it. So it became. It's almost like you get on fire. I would. And so I had to kind of relax it. And so I stopped doing that until I could get it more collaborated in my own voice. And that's why, like, even when I script, they speak in really plain language. I mean,
That's
really
good.
simple language. And so I think it's because they're dealing with me, so I kind of like that. But that's the process. And so I know that, sometimes I've done podcasts and not even remembered some of the stuff I've said.
Really?
Yeah.
So you think you've started channeling during?
I think I switch in and out.
So it kind of happens spontaneously, but also you could do like, okay, I'm going to channel, take the necessary steps, get into the zone, and then just let it flow.
I could. I don't always do that with, like, I know with a client, I know that if they're meant to hear something, yeah, they'll go ahead and channel and they'll tell them information. My linear clients, that's why I get to speak in my regular voice, so
Right.
that they may not pick up on
So
it.
they don't get freaked out.
Yeah, yeah. But it really does flow, and I'll say, "Wow, that sounded magnificent." It wasn't me, how,
Yeah, but it's
because it's
fascinating.
really
Yeah.
quite brilliant. I mean, they really are. I have to say, your higher self and even the guides and guardians, they're really quite clever and really interested in our advancement.
Right.
They're really interested in everyone succeeding.
Right. So they really are on our side.
They really are.
Yeah.
They really are. I'd say sit quietly. I tell everybody, sit quietly for even 10 minutes a day and just
Yeah.
let the thoughts flow and just see where you go and see what comes to you, because even if a new thought comes to you, that's your higher self giving you some info.
It's interesting. It's quite hard to get silent in your head, right? Because that's why I think a lot of people find even meditation quite challenging, which is that is literally what it is, the sort of process of watching the thoughts as they come.
Yep.
And or watch your breath instead, and then the thoughts interrupt you before you've realized it.
Yeah.
And then you've got to catch yourself. Okay, let the thoughts go again. But to get to the point where it's just silent and there's nothing coming out, is that just to get to the silence of the noise, so that then it's like a clear canvas for the new message to come in? It's like a clear vessel almost.
Yeah, you can. I think messages come even when you're driving a car and I think there's different forms of kind of
Yeah.
automatic meditation. But I think when we're doing mundane, that's also your higher self communicating to you, because you're kind of down, you're not high thinking, you don't have as many thoughts. Like gardening. If you're
Yeah.
gardening, that's really therapeutic, and that's when I used to have a lot of conversations at that time. But I do know people that you can be driving and you get an epiphany, because driving is almost like an automatic response for us, because our subconscious mind just takes over on that one.
Yeah. I had one of the CEOs of, what was that? What's that company that the woman's underclothes? The not Skims kind of copied it, but what was the original one? There's this one of the first fastest female billionaires. I'll have to add this on afterwards. Yeah, look that up, Cam.
I've been looking up all the stuff.
Oh, right. And she said that she works close to where her work is, but she purposefully drives around the block a few times, because she gets into that flow state when she's driving. And she, I think, even got the name of her company. Spanx, yes, exactly. And she said that she got the name of the company while she was driving, and so now she replicates that, like, as a sort of habit to drive around, because for her, she tunes in. I guess different people have different methods, techniques to, it isn't always sitting in silent with your eyes closed.
That's exactly right.
It can be active, and then suddenly, bing.
Well, it's kind of like even when I'm scripting and channeling, I'm literally looking out first, taking some deep breaths, and I'm looking pretty much at the ocean.
Yeah.
And I just look at that. So it's not like I have my eyes closed or anything.
So are you like beachfront?
I'm across from the beach up in a hill.
But you have like a beach view.
Yes, I do.
Wow.
Yeah, I
That
do.
must be nice.
I
to
manifested
wake
that.
up. Really?
I wanted to feel like I lived on vacation every day of my life.
Right. So where
I was
were you
coming from Boston.
You're coming from Boston,
I
which
came
is
from
cold
Boston, which
and
is cold and a lot of
urban.
snow and
Right.
yeah.
And then how did you end up in Malibu?
Well, my oldest daughter had done all her internships from college out there, so she was out there pretty early, and then she went out there. So, and then my younger one also went out there, but I was visiting her a lot, and so I kind of liked it. And then I knew somebody before I was going to move out there. I knew my son was graduating, and I'm like, I lived in this pretty big house, and it was just me and the cat.
Right. So you
The dogs had the
and
dogs had passed away, so it was me
oh
and a
man,
cat.
so you were like an empty nester,
So it
as
was
they
like,
call it.
yeah, and it was time to leave. You know, Boston wasn't a place where I grew up, and I just stayed there because I didn't want to move my kids, and I wanted them to feel that they got to live in the same place because my parents moved me around. So I think that was healthy for them. And then I just wanted to experience something different. I was ready.
Right.
I'm getting ready again. I
Yeah?
know. Yeah, I know.
To move from Malibu?
Yeah, I know. I might hang on to the place for a little bit, but I know that what I'm meant to do is expanding.
Right. So what?
So I can feel it.
Going more global?
Yeah.
Right.
I can feel it.
Okay.
So it's time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Time to share more?
It's time to share more. Yeah. It's time to
So do you have plans to
teach.
sort of, to teach?
To teach, to give people as much as I can.
Yeah, because you're giving people tools to help themselves, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, everything that we talked about this. I just put every technique that I have so far in something called Be Your Own Mind Guru, the protocol. And it basically, for instance, if we talk about language and the frequency of language, and what I'll do is I'll put a treatment behind it that you can go through to clear out your language.
Clear out your language.
Yeah, to make your language so there's no duality. So there's less duality. So you use words that are more enhancing than contracting.
Sure.
Because you want to be more expansive than contracted. So I'll take them through that, or
so the way you speak to yourself, the way you speak to others,
everything.
There's just like
how you
complete
communicate.
revamp on that.
Yeah, and then I'll put the treatment about the egoic subconscious limitations with the contract in there. I use that one. I did another one that was called the golden connection technique, which helps people connect directly to their higher self on a much faster process. So you don't even have to be a meditator to achieve that. And so all of these techniques, there's got to be like, 30 in there, because all of us are different frequencies.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to hit where the person is.
Yeah, because different,
Because that's why one technique, this is why I studied so many techniques, because they're not just NLP or not just DNA reengineering. It's all different types of techniques that are going to resonate or be the frequency of someone. So same with this as you go through it. And then at the back of it, I list 95 other techniques and therapies if you want to check out. You don't have to do mine.
So that's what, on your website or in your book?
No, this is in the book, but I probably will start putting pages on my new website about these. I might run them, just run them every once in a while, where you can, do like the Emerald protocol.
Sure.
Which takes you on a journey doing something else. I have quantum jumps in there. I explain what quantum jumping is. I also give people a basic dictionary of like, what is the subconscious and conscious mind and superconscious, and why you want to know what they do. And they're short layman's paragraphs. Talk about epigenetics, short paragraph.
Sounds like it could be made into some whole course, like a whole kind of almost I'm imagining like masterclass type, content of
It,
like
yeah.
chapter by chapter, this technique, that technique.
Definitely. It definitely could. And so but I start in layman's terms in the beginning so that they understand. I explain what duality is.
Yeah.
The matrix. I talk about the matrix, even the multiverse. I give them a lot of information, but it's always in a bite size that they can understand, because you don't have to know how everything works. You just
Sure.
need to know the basics.
Sure. So how would you put the multiverse into a basic explanation?
I say everything is happening at the same time. So our past life, our present life, our future life, it's all going at the same time. Not to mention that there's a gazillion versions of what we're doing right now that are all playing out out there. This is just the one we're choosing right now. And
So is it like
and some people, I mean, it's becoming more, quantum science is proving it more and more that exists. There's still a lot of people that are like, what? And like, but I know this for a fact because I've experienced it. When I changed my fear from safety, security, and confidence, I was in a situation where I literally was in one situation and saw it just change slightly. Now we can say that's quantum jumping, but we can also say that's the multiverse. So that version is still out there, but I chose to be in this version instead of that version.
right. So it's almost like if everything's already happened, and it's like obviously very difficult for our human minds to try to like encapsulate that whole possibility of there's infinite versions of us constantly, every branch of every version going off in infinite directions forever, and it's already happened and it's already there, and we are just navigating that via our choices
Yeah.
to say go to that one. But it's hard to imagine that, but that is quite a mind-blowing concept. I think even Stephen Hawkins, as one of his last theories, was something about that
I
there
think
was a multiverse. So he was even reaching that kind of mathematically, like
Yeah.
to the same conclusion. And a lot of science is taking that concept very seriously.
They are.
So it's not such a woo-woo crazy idea.
No, it's fun to think about. Like
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's really fun to think about, and the way you can change that version ever so slightly is just by your frequency and your emotion.
So you're like almost attracting the version of me
Yep.
out of all the versions that already are there. I'm gonna be that guy,
Yeah,
kind of thing.
pretty
Right?
much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And your higher self, how does that fit into the multiverse then? Your higher self's like all of them, or
I believe I believe so.
right?
That's my belief. I mean, everybody, people can have different beliefs, but my belief is my higher self's always connected to everything.
Right. And they're trying to navigate you towards the ones that you're choosing, which is through your choice of free will.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah.
which you experience is that interesting.
Which is like I said, it's one of the greatest gifts we have is free will and free choice.
Interesting.
And that also kind of goes into quantum entanglement and all of that.
Yeah. So how does that tie in with quantum entanglement? I know the basic. Okay, I'm gonna probably butcher this, but two particles which had been quantum entangled, then when separated, even by great distances,
They still affect each other.
if there's a change in one, it will immediately affect the other, even though it's over vast distances,
Yeah.
faster than the speed of light. Something like that.
Yeah, that's
I'm getting the thumbs up
that's
from
right.
Cam.
That's
something
right.
like
You can also go into what is it? Quantum. When you pay attention to a certain particle, you can shift another particle by your attention.
through the observation effect. Right.
Yeah,
Oops.
sorry. Yeah, the observation effect does affect that, and that's how you can shift your reality too. Because if you have an observation, your intention, your awareness is on a certain thing.
So is that why?
That's how you can bring negative stuff to you too. Like if
Right.
you're so afraid that something's going to happen, and then it happens, it's because you've
You've almost visualized the bad thing happening,
yeah.
and then it's almost collapsed the kind of reality, because from what I understand on that side, it's like everything exists as a wave, and then when you observe it, it behaves like a particle. Right?
Yeah.
That's the sort of double slit experiment
Exactly.
in quantum physics. So it's almost like everything exists in a state of all possibility, but as you observe it, it collapses. So that's why it's important to sort of visualize positive things that
Yeah.
you want, because you're collapsing the field of infinite possibility into the one which you're going to be experiencing through your choice, which
That's
is
exactly right.
yeah. So you're choosing all the time where you're navigating in the multiverse.
Exactly. I think it's pretty amazing. Like once you start to really open yourself up to all of the possibilities and everything that's happening, including, you know, whether it's channeling, whether it's reprogramming, whatever you want to choose, there's just so much out there for you to shift your reality.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah.
Unless you're already living heaven on earth, then.
Yeah.
Hey.
So what's heaven on earth like for you when you say you go to your place that's heaven on earth? What does that look like?
What does it look like for me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's something that I never.
Oh, that you never share? Really? Okay.
This is something that I was taught by a teacher a long time ago, that you can share it after you're.
This happened?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Because otherwise you got other energies going there.
Right.
And you just
Oh,
don't-
hey, stay out of my heaven. Hey.
Stay out of here. Okay. Yeah. It's so interesting.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, so I think that's a good point to wrap up. Thanks for joining me today and for sharing this absolutely fascinating knowledge. I hope we, stay in touch, and, I want to follow up and see when your book comes out. It's not
Okay.
out yet, but you're still
No.
working on it, and I'd love to talk more about all the fascinating stuff that you do and all the people you help.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was an honor and pleasure to assist anyone who's listening and to you today.
Right.
It
Thanks,
always
Janet.
is.
Cheers.
Cheers.